So in this video, we're going to look at more applying the exponential function, and we're going to learn about the compound interest formula. So your objective is that you can state the compound interest formula, and then you can use the compound interest formula. So the compound interest formula, interest, refers to, a lot of times you see with banks or loaning money, are the main two parts where you see when we use interest. You might say something, you owe me this plus interest. So interest is the money you receive from a bank having money in a savings account. So if you have a savings account, the bank gives you money after every month, usually extra money for just keeping money into that savings account. Or if you owe somebody money, they might charge you interest, saying every month you don't pay, or you're still paying on it, you're going to have to pay some extra money. It's kind of a different way of making money at that point. So compounding interest. So the way a lot of saving accounts work, they compound interest. So they collect or earning money on a regular schedule during the year. So for example, they might collect monthly, weekly, or daily. They could do minutely. Sometimes they do bi-weekly. Majority of banks do it monthly. So you don't have to. They'll give you a statement every month. Some might even do it annually or biannually, which means twice a year. So how do you calculate how much you owe or earn? So you have the compound interest formula, which is this right here. So make sure you write this down in your notes. And then you also want to write down what everything stands for. So A is your total amount. This is after your calculation. P is your starting amount. R is your interest rate, which we're going to give it to as a percent, but you need to write it as a decimal. Make sure this is decimal. Sorry, my pen stopped working. So you want this to be a decimal. Okay. The number of times you're going to compound it, and that should be in 1 year. And then T is the number of years. You do not have to memorize this formula, but you do need to know what each of the variables stand for. There's also something called compounding continuously. So you use the compound interest formula when compounding continuously, and it would actually say the word continuously. If you don't say that, then you're using this one. It will tell you how many times we're compounding. But if you hear the word continuously, we're using this formula. And the nickname of this formula is called PERT, because if you look at how the letters spell. So again, you have to know what everything stands for. So A is your total amount. P is your starting amount. That's the same in both formulas. R is your interest rate, which again, you want that as a decimal. Right. And then E, this should be E is a number. It's actually a mathematical number. I know it's weird to say a letter as a number, but E is an actual number, and it's like 2.71, and then there's more to it. Kind of like the number pi. Pi is a number 3.14. E is also a number. And it was a number that was discovered just for banking. And then T is the number of years. So again, you do not have to memorize this formula, but you do need to know what all those letters stand for. Alright, so let's take a look at one example. We're going to do more of this together in class tomorrow. Alright, so you deposit $500 in an account and pay 3% interest. Find the balance after 2 years if the interest is compounded within a given frequency. And write your answers in complete sentences. So let's look at what everything stands for. So in both formulas, we need a P. P is your starting amount, so P would be 500. And then you need your rate, which is 3%. But your rate, we want to write as a decimal. So that is 0. We move the decimal twice, 0.03%. And then find the balance after 2 years. That would be your T. So in both formulas, in this one, we have everything covered. We just need to figure out our A. In this one, what we're missing is the N, and that's where we're going to get down here. Annually. Annual means how many times for a year. Well, annually means 1 time, so your N is 1. Monthly means you're doing it every month, and how many months in a year? That is 12, so your N is 12. Continuously means we're going to use the PERT formula, this over here. If I don't say continuously, I'll tell you how many times I'm going to use this formula here. Alright, so setting it up, this would look like A equals P, which is 500. Alright, and then you go 1 plus your rate, which is 0.03, over how many times you're doing it? Once. Your n. I'm just plugging in for variables. And then it's 1 times how many years we're doing it? 2. Alright. So when you're figuring this out, you have 500. You have to follow your order operations. So you divide this first, which is 0.3 divided by 1 is 0.3. And add 1, so that's 1.03. And I can do my exponent 1 times 2. And then I'm going to calculate all this out. So you might want to have your calculator handy or your phone. And 1.03. And I'm going to square that, order operations, and I take it times 500. And I get $530.45. And you want 2 decimals since it's money. So the only difference between this one and the one we just did for B, the monthly one, is that instead of 1 there, we're going to put a 12. So then this becomes 1 times 2. So then when I simplify, it's 500. I'm going to take 0.03 divided by 12. And that comes out to be 1.00, because I have to add the 1. And the reason the 1's there is because we're growing by 100%. We talked about that in class for other applications. And then 24. And even though we're compounding more frequently, these two numbers should end up being the same. So I'm going to calculate that out. And again, follow your order operations. And this comes out to be $530, but our cents change, and 88 cents. So you earn a little bit more money in 2 years if you compound it monthly. And then the last one, A equals PERT. So P is still 500. Remember, E is not a variable, E is a number. Your rate, 0.03. And how long? And 2 years. So I calculate this top part out. So I have 0.06 to the E power. And I'll show you in class where the E button is on your calculator if you have a scientific. So we have 0.06 to the E. And this time we get $530.92. So we earn the most money if we compound continuously, 4 cents more than if we do it monthly. Again, they're very similar answers, which should do because all we're doing is changing how many times we're actually doing the interest a year. So review, you have 2 formulas. Again, you don't need to memorize these formulas. You have to memorize what the variables stand for. Compound interest is calculating how much money we earn or owe, and then make sure you write the percent as the decimal when you're doing this. Reminder to do reflection to get credit for watching this video.